Guerlain Derby is a classic, and I have to say, right at the beginning of this video, this fragrance gets a perfect score. Stay tuned to hear my thoughts. Hey, what's going on guys? Raj here, welcome back to the channel. I hope all of you out there are doing well. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about a fragrance that for me is just a classic. I had done a video recently called 5 Perfect Fragrances, and I mentioned this fragrance in that video. If you want to see all the other picks, click on the I in this video in the top right hand section, or I'll leave a link in the description also. This fragrance is part of Guerlain's Les Parisiennes collection and was actually originally created in 1985 by Jean-Paul Guerlain. I will show a picture of the vintage bottle. It looks really cool. I don't have a huge amount of experience with the vintage. However, I think around this time last year, I met up with a few UK fragrance reviewers and I got to try a little sample of the vintage version, and it was really beautiful. I didn't get to try it on skin, so I can't do a direct comparison, but what I can say, it really did remind me of the bottle I have now. I bought this bottle when I went to Paris, and I believe it was the Rue Saint-Honoré boutique. I'll show some pictures. It's a fantastic store, great customer experience. They give you a lot of samples. I got a couple of free Santal Royale candles. And the Champs-Élysées boutique is their flagship one, which is definitely worth visiting, but this one is also a very good experience as well. I'm going to do something that I don't normally do in my videos, and that's focus on the presentation, because this is definitely worth a look at. Guerlain's Derby is a bold fragrance. It is a fragrance that has a lot of character and it feels very masculine to me. I'm not saying a woman couldn't wear it, I just feel like it's mainly going to be men that gravitate towards this fragrance. Looking at the notes in the top, there is orange and bergamot. In the heart there is spices, Indian wood and carnation. And in the base notes there is patchouli, leather and forest floor notes. They are describing this as a fougere chypre leather, which I really believe. It really gives you that vintage classic men's cologne vibe, but done in a very refined, very elegant way, very expensive, luxurious smelling way. It's a beautiful fragrance. Guerlain Derby performs really well on my skin. I get around that 10-hour mark. It transitions really nicely on my skin. It pushes off the skin quite a bit in the first couple of hours, and I feel like it's better in cooler, colder weather. I noticed when the weather was warming up, or certainly when my body was warming up, this really pushed off the skin a little bit too much for my liking, which is why I think cooler, colder weather is best. It has a formality to it. It feels like more of a formal fragrance. It feels like more of a masculine fragrance, but you know, a woman could pull this off, you know, if you wanted to, but I just feel that it's more masculine to me. And in terms of the type of person who I would see wearing this, well, I do picture a man, and I picture somebody who is very confident in who they are, somebody who has conviction, somebody who doesn't need to listen to everybody around them. They feel like they are sure in what they say. They're not inconsiderate, but one of those people who doesn't need validation from others. That's kind of the feeling I get from this fragrance, and I always find it funny how you can link a personality of a person with the personality of a fragrance. I definitely do think that is a thing, if you can put it that way. So what does this fragrance smell of? Well, it is my scent of the day, and as you can see, I have worn it quite a lot. And I've done a fresh spray on the top of my hand just to bring all of those top notes to mind. Well, what this really smells like actually is... So actually, before I get into what this smells like, there are a few fragrances that come to mind. Yves Saint Laurent's Kouros. I would also say Givenchy's Gentleman, the original one. And I would also say Patchouli Intense from Parfum de Nicolai. These are all classic men's fragrances, but they all, for me, have a slightly rough edges, whereas Derby, for me, is a little bit more of a smoother experience. In the opening, this is the one where it's possibly the most challenging, and I think this fragrance needs opportunity to breathe. You need to give this one time, because that patchouli note, that dry, almost slightly industrial paint kind of smell is there in the opening, and it can be a little bit overwhelming if you're not used to this style of fragrance. Give it about half an hour, maybe even an hour, and what you start to find is there is this wonderful carnation note that comes through. It's rich, it's very red, and it is spicy and floral at the same time. Carnation is something that I've only really experienced in more classic style fragrances. Like Chanel Egoiste is a good example of a very nicely done carnation fragrance. There are many others, and it's present certainly in Guerlain's Derby. What I also get later on is a spicy quality that reminds me a little bit of Bel Ami. It could be a clove note. It doesn't specifically say what type of spices there are, but I'm thinking the clove note or the spicy quality that you might find in like a Bel Ami, or even in a Muscat Ravageur, something along those lines. One thing that is so beautiful about this fragrance is the transitions and how they are noticeable, but it's also a very smooth transition. This is like this is kind of like a Formula One driver, an experienced one who knows the track and is just going around the curves so smoothly. And yeah, it is kind of like that with this fragrance. You do then start to get a lot more of that mossy feel with this one. It says forest floor notes. Yeah, I guess oak moss. This fragrance was reintroduced back in 2012, and I believe with the whole regulations thing, they probably took out the oak moss, but you still get this very wet, foresty, mossy feel with this, which is really nice, but it's nothing too loud. It's quite tailored actually, and this fragrance, even though it is bold and it's strong, it also has a restraint, a very gentlemanly feel, which I really appreciate. And then as you go into the final third of this fragrance, this is a leather heavy fragrance. If you're not a fan of leather, you might not like this one. It's not too harsh, it's not smoky, it's very smooth. It is like and here's a cliche, the interior of a luxury car. It gives you that feeling. It gives you the feeling of fine, supple leather gloves, and it's really, really beautiful actually. It's, as this fragrance goes into the dry down, and that's pretty much the scent that lingers on your skin. Derby is one of those fragrances that I think strikes a nice balance in so many ways, in terms of the notes, the accords, in terms of the performance, and also in terms of, I would say, the price point. So it's not a cheap fragrance, I agree, it's not, but I think it gives you a very, very luxurious feeling. But the price isn't like other niche luxury brands where honestly it's kind of getting a little bit out of hand. So yes, this may hurt a little bit when you buy it, but let's just put it this way. There are many other fragrances that cost a lot more than this, but under-deliver. This gives you a lot for your money. And what I would also say is, as I mentioned at the start of this video, I picked this up for full retail price in the Paris boutique. They give you a lot of samples. I got a few freebies, and you can accumulate points when you buy them in the stores, and you can redeem those points later as time goes by. So you get some free stuff. You know, another way to get your hands on this for a good price, obviously Facebook groups and eBay, but it's always a little bit of a gamble sometimes, even though I have bought many fragrances like that in the past. Harrods here in London is a retailer that sometimes offers 10% off weekends for card holders. Anyone can be a card holder. So yeah, maybe some ways for you to get this fragrance if you at a better price if you don't want to spend the full retail price. It should come as no surprise to you guys that I'm going to give this fragrance a 10 out of 10, and it only becomes the 5th fragrance in all my time of reviewing to receive this perfect score. So it's in good company. I really want to hear what you guys have to say about this fragrance. Do you share my enthusiasm or do you hate it? You know, whatever you have to say it. Do you have the vintage version? How does it compare? Thanks for watching the video, guys. If you like this type of content, please do hit the like button and maybe share it with somebody who you think would also like to watch this type of content, and subscribe if you are not done so already. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.